So joining us now from Arkansas, from Little Rock, is a guy who knows a lot about this, and you know him. Mike Huckabee is a former governor of Arkansas. His daughter is likely to be the next governor of the state. And Mike Huckabee does a program on the Trinity Broadcasting Network, Saturday and Sunday. You can see it there. So my analysis is basically the Obama marriage play was the turning point. Do you have another turning point?
I think that is exactly when it happened. And we've seen a steady drip, drip, drip of cultural change. But that's when the spigot was turned on full blast, and it was no longer just sort of a dribble out of the hose. It was a fire hose running at full strength. And from that point forward, the entire woke culture emphasis began to happen. And it started with the idea that we could abandon what has been traditional mores and standards, in this case, as it relates to marriage. Even Obama in '08, and I'm glad you played that clip, because a lot of people may either have forgotten or may have never known that what he said in 2008 was really the attitude of the general American culture. And that is that you could allow civil unions. Nobody really had a big problem with that. But the idea that you would redefine marriage, and that was the issue, Bill. It wasn't saying people couldn't love who they wanted to love. That's the lie that's been told. This was a redefinition of a 5,000-year-old institution called marriage that had its roots in a Judeo-Christian biblical understanding of how our culture was to be created and how we created the next generation and reproduction. And all that we are as a civilization really came down to that notion that we had responsibility, one man, one woman, life partners, creating the next generation and training them to be our replacements. Well, when you throw that out the door and you say that no longer is the standard, it's whatever we feel, what we think, what we believe, that replaced the notion of objective truth with subjective truth. And we've gone to hell ever since.
Well, you know, the progressives don't believe in objective truth when it comes to any kind of religious judgment. But along with the marriage, you also had the life issue. So back in 2008, when Barack Obama first ran for president, he would never, no politician in this country could ever say, I believe in aborting the unborn up until the birth date. So if it's an hour before birth and the woman says don't want it, you can't say in 2008, oh no, go ahead, kill the unborn an hour before the birth is to take place. That would have been extreme, and that would have eliminated any politician. Now, the progressive movement, that's firmly their belief system. Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, on and on. That's their position. So that's even more horrifying to some of us than what happened in the other cultural issues.
I agree with that. And what is especially troubling, most of the people you just named are people who are part of the Catholic Church, who has been the most pro-life religious organization. In fact, I've often said, thank God for my Catholic brothers and sisters. They were way ahead of us evangelicals when it came to recognizing the value and intrinsic worth of every human being. They were pro-life before it became cool to be that way. And they did it because of a biblical understanding of the value of every human life. Nancy Pelosi is Catholic. Joe Biden is Catholic. And they didn't used to have radical positions on this. No one used to call this healthcare because there's nothing healthy about it. And it is the only aspect of healthcare in which at least one of the patients being treated is absolutely going to die because of the procedures that a doctor would use. So there's nothing that you can say. You can euphemistically call it what you want, but that's not healthcare. I think that Republicans are making a big mistake by being afraid to address it. And instead of pushing back on the radical views that the Democrats have taken, the one you just described, abortion up until the time of birth, we find ourselves trying to defend some of the strong positions of life, and we shouldn't take that.
No, it should be simplified down to This is why we believe what we believe. And if you
Yeah.
really care about human rights, right? That's
Every
all the
human.
progressive movement is. Oh, it's human rights this, human rights that, rights, 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 rights. Well, wait. You have DNA on conception, scientific fact. There's the science. Well, no human rights here? In most states, if a murderer kills a woman carrying a fetus, they're charged with the murder of the fetus. Okay?
Yes.
So how does that stack, Nancy Pelosi? But what I'm trying to get here, Governor, is that this is accelerated much, much quicker than I
Yes.
even thought when I wrote Culture Warrior in '06. This now is way out of control. You're the National Football League, the preeminent entertainment corporation in America, basically encouraging at one point people to kneel for the national anthem. And I mean, disparaging their country. Disney, we'd already talked about. And the corporate media is firmly on the side of the woke. I mean, if you watched the Emmys last night, I didn't, but I saw clips, and very few people did. It was woke after woke after woke after woke. That's Hollywood. 100% woke. If you're not woke in Hollywood, you don't work. So this colossus, this movement, which I believe isn't supported by the majority of Americans, by the way, and I'm just praying for the backlash to come, although I'm not sure it will. But this colossus of progressive wokeism has now enveloped every part of our society.
The growth of this has been exponential, and a great way to remember it is this past weekend when we observed the anniversary of 9/11 and the horrific tragedy that befell over 3,000 of our fellow citizens who were murdered in cold blood by terrorists. I remember in the aftermath of that, nobody talked about America as a racist country, a evil country. We didn't see ourselves as horrible people that deserved that. In fact, everybody, I don't care what color, where they were on the economic scale, everybody in this country flew a flag. They were patriotic. They were defensive of our country and of our system and of our way of life. And what has happened in that 21 years? Well, these cultural changes have happened where people now believe that America, somewhere along the way, and I don't know how this would have happened in such a short time, we were a good country all through 2001, and then suddenly we became a horrible one. When did this happen? Was it with the change of marriage, the change of respect of the idea of life? It was all of those things. And now we have people who believe that we've always been an evil, systemically racist country, imperialistic, that we're horrible and bad. Bill, I refuse to believe that. This is a great country. My own life has been one. I came up poor. If I had just lived my life in most countries of the world, I'd be living a horrible life right now. And I'd be stuck where I was started. But I live in America. You and I both have had a great opportunity. You came out of blue collar circumstances, and we both understand what great opportunities this country has afforded us and every other American who wanted to work for something.
Right. Now, is there any way to roll this situation back? Is there any way to bring the culture of America back to where it's rational? See, it's not rational anymore, particularly on college campuses. It's witch hunting, it's allegation, no due process. You better do what the progressives say. If you don't work, or you can't even function as a student. And that has drifted down into high schools and some grammar schools. Is there any way to roll this back when states like New York, where I am, California, Illinois, are pretty much gone? They're gone, okay? Can the country roll it back a bit?
I think it can. One of the reasons I believe that we may be seeing the beginning of it is that you have citizens who have just taken it up to their nose and they're sick of it. They're going to school board meetings and they know they're going to be called domestic terrorists for exercising nothing more than their own citizenship. But there's a growing sense of frustration where people recognize that the left has taken us too far. Bill, most of the people center right are polite people. They just want to live their lives and be left alone. They're really not wanting to engage in going and yelling at people who are sitting at a restaurant. They don't want to go up to someone who's trying to put gas in his or her car and yell and scream at them and tell them they're not fit to live. That's just not who most Americans are. But when pushed, and when they start seeing the mutilation of 7- and 8-year-old children for some transgender nonsense, these same children that we don't think are old enough to decide what they're going to have for dinner, but we let them get surgically altered. We let their bodies be chemically castrated. You see young teenage girls as young as 12 and 13 who have their breasts removed, and boys who have their penises removed. They'll never be able to be how they were originally designed to be. And many of them in a few years start deeply regretting and resenting what has happened to them. But it's too late. And Americans are beginning to realize something's wrong here.
I think that there will be a flashback, a kickback in some states. But some states, they're gone. And that's the first time in history. I mean, before the Civil War, yeah, we saw that. But since the Civil War, it really has been nothing like this. And I don't think most Americans understand the severity of this culture war. Now, the media is dissolving before our eyes, the corrupt corporate media. 5 years from now, Governor, it's going to be a cipher, all right? Which is why you do what you do, I do what I do. We're gone from that corporate media. I'm never, ever going back to it, all right? But there are certain sections of this country, although when I think about Sweden, and I'm going to do a report later on this week, Sweden was one of the most liberal countries on earth. Now it's becoming conservative. Maybe if it can happen in Sweden, it can happen here. Hey, Governor, always good to see you. Always a lively conversation. Thank you for helping us out very much.
My pleasure, Bill. Take care, my friend.